Hey guys, Robert Maxwell here, and in this video I'm going to show you exactly how you can build a fully equipped home gym to train for powerlifting or other strength sports with no equipment other than what you might find in your garage or house. With the COVID-19 pandemic making lots of headlines these days and causing a lot of businesses worldwide, including most gyms, at least in this part of the world, to close their doors for the time being, a lot of strength trainees, powerlifters, bodybuilders, and just fitness enthusiasts are gritting their teeth right now in frustration not being able to make it to the gym and being stuck at home. Now, a lot of people have addressed this issue already with the suggestion to do body weight training or to do goblet squats with a bottle of water or soda or something like that. And that's all well and good. But what if you're training for a very specific purpose and you require a barbell and weights and a squat rack and a bench, or at least something that can serve in place of those properly, that's closer to those movements, barbell squats, bench press, deadlift, than just using your body or some object held in your hands for weight. That's where this video comes in. Last year, my wife and I traveled to Poland unexpectedly on a family matter, and I ended up being stuck away from the gym for about 3 weeks. Obviously, in a situation like this, family comes first. In the case of the COVID-19 issue, safety comes first, and staying at home is the right thing to do right now. But that doesn't mean you can't train properly and adequately for your sport, whether that's powerlifting or anything else. You just have to think kind of creatively, and that's what I'm going to show you how to do in this video, with examples of how I did it during this trip to Poland last year. This video is going to give you some specific ideas on things you can use to simulate a barbell for barbell squats, bench press, and deadlift. But it's also not my intention to give you an exact, detailed list of directions, because the things you have in your garage might be different than the things my wife's parents had in their garage. So that's why you need to just take this video as inspiration to think creatively and find objects in your own house or garage that could work similarly to what you're going to see here. The first problem that I had to find a solution for was the fact that I couldn't do barbell squats in my in-laws' backyard. That's why I started looking through their garage, and with their permission, of course, found a long straight steel pry bar in their section of gardening tools and 2 rubber pails with metal handles on them. I also found some sand in the backyard and some loose patio bricks that had been set aside from a patio renovation job a few years earlier. So I put some sand in the buckets, saturated the sand with water to make it heavier, and added some patio bricks on top. Now, that still left me with the problem of setting this makeshift bar in the form of a pry bar with buckets on the end down on something that would simulate a squat rack. I had to set it on something high enough that I could get under it without having to awkwardly lift it from the ground and get it onto my back. I looked through their garage again and managed to find some fully functional spare tires with rims, 8 of them in fact, 4 for each of the 2 vehicles my in-laws own. I was able to stack 4 of these on each side to form a sort of makeshift squat rack and set my makeshift bar and weights down on that between squat sets. So this setup, the straight pry bar, the pails, and the 8 spare tires with rims, allowed me to make a makeshift barbell with weights and a squat rack to perform makeshift barbell squats. Now, there was the small detail of the fact that the buckets tended to slide off the end of the pry bar, and that obviously would be a problem. So I managed to find some dumbbell collars. My father-in-law had an old set of rusty adjustable dumbbells in the basement, and I used the dumbbell collars tightened onto the end of the pry bar to form a sort of barrier and prevent the handles of the pails from sliding off. This worked fine, but before I found the collars, I was going to just use several wraps of electrical tape on each end of the pry bar to do the same sort of thing. So you don't need dumbbell collars to make something like this work necessarily. After a few days of training with this setup, I realized that the pails with the wet sand and the patio bricks were no longer heavy enough. So I went hunting for something heavier and eventually found these unused grain sacks in the garden shed, which I doubled up to make sure they were strong enough. So there's actually two grain sacks, one inside the other on each end of the barbell you're seeing here, and filled them each with about 150 pounds of wet sand and rock. So total about 300 pounds, which is relatively light for the sort of training that I'm used to doing, but I would make it harder, as you can see, by pausing the squats and just doing a lot of volume. So in this way, I was able to perform barbell squats without a barbell, without a squat rack, and without weights. The next challenge was to come up with a setup for bench press. Obviously, I already had my bar in the form of the pry bar, but I didn't have a bench. So I took several of the tires and laid them down on the ground in the backyard, end to end. This gave me a sort of bench, although it wasn't terribly comfortable and didn't give me as much support as a normal bench, but it certainly was better than nothing. And it was a big improvement over just lying on the ground and doing floor press. Floor press is a fine accessory movement to regular bench press if you have a regular barbell and weights, but because my weights were hanging down below my makeshift bar, they would have hit the ground a lot sooner than ideal, and my range of motion on floor press would have been very low and not a lot of training value there. One thing I did find is that with the weights hanging down this way, it took a lot more effort to stabilize the bar than usual. That's why you can see I'm sort of shaking a little bit as I bring this makeshift bar down and up again. Now for this exercise, as you can see, I used the pails again. The grain sacks would have been too heavy because of the added difficulty and this instability. But I found the extra stabilizing work I had to do to actually be a good thing. It helped me work my stabilizing muscles in a way that I wouldn't normally during the bench press, and overall I was able to get a very good chest and tricep pump doing this makeshift bench press. The final exercise as a power lifter that I needed to invent a substitute for was the deadlift. Again, I already had my bar and my weights. Now, the problem with simply pulling the makeshift bar and weights off the ground with myself standing on the ground was that, again, because the weights hang down below the makeshift bar, the pry bar, that would mean the range of motion would be significantly reduced compared to regular deadlift. Regular deadlift with regulation weight plates involves the bar sitting about 8.5 inches off the floor. So I had to try to simulate that as closely as I could. My solution was to stand on one of the spare wheels and perform the deadlift from there, essentially creating a deficit deadlift effect. And that gave me a similar range of motion to regular conventional deadlift. Although the weight is pretty light compared to what I'm used to, again, like the squat, I was able to still get a good training effect by doing lots and lots of volume until my muscles were quite fatigued. So as you've seen, I was able to create a fully functional makeshift powerlifting gym in my father and mother-in-law's backyard using nothing other than stuff I found in their garage. Their garage is fairly average. They don't have a whole lot of unusual items in their garage, and I'm sure if you look through your garage and think creatively, you too can find objects that allow you to create quite a functional home gym, certainly more functional than just using body weight, as good as body weight exercises can be. I should mention that in addition to the makeshift squat, bench press, and deadlift that you've seen here, I did supplement these workouts during our time in Poland with bodyweight movements like close grip push-ups, jumping squats, pull-ups, and stuff like that to make sure I had a full range of accessory exercises to hit all of the supporting muscles for the three main movements I train as a powerlifter. But bottom line, think creatively and you will find a way to make a decent gym even if you don't have the budget or the ability to buy any equipment for that gym in your home. I hope you found this video useful and interesting. If you have, give the video a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel, and I'll see you next time.